But now we're going to get into a few more performance mods. So it pulls a ton of air when it kicks on. This mod might not be for everybody out there. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're back out in the garage working on the 2017 Ram Hemi Sport. And so if you've been watching the channel or following along with some of our other projects, we've been doing a lot of appearance upgrades and things like that. We've done a few little performance things with the air filter and cold air intake and the hood scoop and everything. And so again, I'll leave that playlist below, some of the links to those projects if you want to follow along and check out with those things. But for the most part, we've been doing some appearance upgrades to the truck and getting everything just tweaked the way I wanted it. And so, but now we're going to get into a few more performance mods and stuff. And to start off with, I'm going to do some of the more simple things to start with. And so today we're going to be doing the electric fan mod for these trucks. So if you followed along on any forums or seen some other videos, there are quite a few of them out there that the V6 Rams come with an electric fan from the factory. And so it is a direct fit on these trucks as well, direct bolt on. I'll show you the one we bought. I'll leave that link down below as well. But it replaces the mechanical fan, the clutch-driven fan on the water pump on these trucks, and will free up some horsepower. It's not going to add any horsepower, but it will free up some horsepower, let the engine spin up a little faster and easier, get that drain off the motor, and let it work a little easier. So that's what we're going to work on today. Show you what we got in store. So hopefully it's going to be pretty straightforward. It's not going to be too bad. We have to pop this bracket loose right up here and just kind of move this coolant hose over out of the way. There's a small tab right in here that you push and a bolt here. There's a clip on the top right here. And there are, of course, the tabs on this side. You can see here. You can take that off there, or not take that off, but move that out the way. The bolt here, and then there's some clips under the bottom as well. And then this whole shroud will lift out. And so we've got to get that out the way. But first things first is the clutch fan that's in there. So that big nut that holds it on is, of course, reverse threaded. And so we've got to see if we can lock that pulley in place. Some people have been able to just put a ratchet into the tensioner pulley and put some extra tension on the belt to hold that pulley still from slipping. And then that was just enough pressure on it to break that nut free. And then you were able to spin it off and drop it out. And so we're going to try that. I think there's some holes in that. Yeah, there's some holes in this water pump pulley. You could put a screwdriver in it and wedge it. So we'll try that next. You can go to places like Advanced, O'Reilly, some of the auto parts stores, and they will loan you a tool that will stop this from spinning and allow you to break that nut free as well. So if you strike out with all the other methods, you can go get a special tool designed for that, I think with their loaner program or whatever. But we're going to try to do it without getting involved with that today. And see how it goes. So again, here's the fan. So the blades and the sizing and everything are pretty straightforward and similar to what is on the truck with the AC fan that is on the truck now. So again, when I have this apart, I'll show you more in depth. But the AC fan doesn't have a shroud. It's mounted straight to the back of the radiators and condensers and stuff. And so it lets the air come through on the sides, whereas this will mate directly up to it and force it to pull air all the way through all areas of the radiator. And then we'll get rid of those two fans and we'll have this one there. It has the plug, standard plug, right here on the front. There are some issues with some trucks. Again, here's that plug right here. So it's a direct bolt up, bolt on, and plug right back up to the stock plug. There are some issues with people having not enough wiring to get to that plug, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully I've got enough slack in this wiring harness to reach the new plug, because it's in the same area, but hopefully I've got enough and won't have to extend it. But we'll worry about that next once I get everything taken apart. So we're going to go ahead and start taking some of these pieces apart. First things first, we're going to see if we can break that nut loose on that clutch fan, because if we can't get that loose, we might have to go get that special tool. But if you're new here, if you want to subscribe to follow along for more videos like this, we do truck videos, car videos, racing, vacation, travel videos, all kinds of stuff like that. So if you want to subscribe, I appreciate it. And now let's get to work. All right, so we ran into a little bit of a ultimate fail on getting that nut loose on the pulley. So I tried a couple of different things that I had seen online. I tried to put extra tension on the tensioner pulley the opposite way to tighten it up and hit that with a wrench, or not, put a wrench on it, hit the wrench to jar it loose. That didn't work. I tried to put the extra tension on the tensioner pulley and just pull on it with the wrench. That didn't work. You can see the holes in the water pump pulley right down there. And I tried to wedge a screwdriver in there because you don't have but so much room from the back of the clutch for the fan to actually get something in those holes, and then try to wedge it into the back side of the water pump housing to hold it still. Ended up bending a screwdriver doing that and almost couldn't get it out, so that was nice, but got that out and fixed. So next we went to Advanced Auto and rented one of their tool sets that came with a clutch fan removal, wrenches and everything. That didn't fit it. It didn't work either. Had to take that back. I even bought a tool that goes in the holes from O'Reilly's, those holes on the pulley itself, the water pump pulley, and that almost worked. It was just about the right size, but the pins that stick off of it were too short to sit down on the pulley and go in the holes, and so that didn't work either. So I ended up getting a bolt and sticking in the hole of the pulley and then wedging a wrench between that bolt and the top of this tensioner, and I was able to kind of lock it in place doing that, and then took my wrench, and all it took was just a little bit of pressure, and the bolt, that big nut on there broke loose, and that was it. So it's spinning now, it's free, and so now we've just got to go ahead and start taking loose some of the bottom edges of this fan shroud so we can drop the fan out and start taking the bolts and stuff out of it and get this thing removed. But that was my bit of a fail on getting the different tools and whatnot. It definitely helps if you have the right tools for the job, as always. So let's get started on the disassembly and see how that goes. So really quickly, you can see with my large crescent wrench here, I couldn't find and I didn't have an exact open-end wrench to fit on here, so I just bought a large crescent wrench that I could use for various things, and now is spinning freely. And so again, this is reverse threaded, so you have to break it clockwise to get it loose, and so now it's spinning. We just got to get the rest of it loose and the bottom edge of this fan shroud, and then it should drop out from below, and then we can take everything off from above. So we'll get started on that now. Here's a look from underneath the truck, and we've got a couple of push pins, one over here, 2 and 3, that this bottom shroud hooks to this fan shroud, and then we've got this little bottom plastic piece that we can pop off and get that fan off from or let it drop below. The fan, you can see barely is right here, so we can get this off and should let the fan drop down below. And here's another look with that little cover piece. Here it is on the ground now. It just pops out of these couple of tabs right there on the side, and then there's a little place where it clips in on the left and right side of the main shroud. You can see barely on the side there, and see that opens up this fan to be able to spin loose now and then fall, or hopefully not fall in our face. We're going to loosen it up from up top until it's pretty much done, and then probably set it down real gently so we don't accidentally hit this other fan or accidentally hit the air conditioner condenser coils or anything like that and damage anything. So just be careful if you do take this loose. Don't let it fall and hit anything or damage it. And then while we're under here, we'll go ahead and take these couple of push pins out, so when we're ready, we'll be able to slide this whole thing out. Here's a look from the top down again. Once you get this thing loose, you can just kind of spin the fan itself, and it will back that nut out for you. But again, you want to be careful not to let this thing fall if possible, once it gets pretty loose and wobbly, so it doesn't damage anything. And then once you get it loose, then you should be able to lower it down through the hole we made in the bottom where we took that cover piece off. So we'll finish doing that now. And there's our clutch fan removed. There's that giant nut on the back side. Came right off out the bottom just fine, no problems. And it is pretty dang heavy on the front of that engine and everything. I'd say this thing, you know, maybe I'll go see if I can find a scale and find out for sure, but I bet this thing's probably 8 to 10 pounds or so. It's pretty heavy. So hopefully that frees up the motor to spin a little easier. Now, let's see, I'll show you. Let me put that down. There's what we're left with, just that little bit of stud sticking out of the water pump pulley there. So that's all cleaned up. And then now we've got to get this coolant hose. So there's a bracket on top of the new housing for the electric fan that this snaps back into. So we've got to pop this loose. It's very hot. I just used this not too long ago. So we got to pop that loose, kind of push it over to the side out the way. And then there's a couple of tabs on this. One right here on the top that holds this in, and then couple, I think one on the bottom. And then again, if we look on the side, there's the little push pin here we've got to push back out the way. Right here, that'll unlock it. And then we got to take these bolts off and this plug, and then hopefully kind of fish this thing up out of the top and out of the way. So that's what we're going to work on now. I took a flathead screwdriver and was able to pry that little clip right up out of here, pop it loose, and then same thing here. You can see it's got the two push pins that go in the holes on this shroud to hold the coolant hose. So I was able to pull up on it and I've got some trim panel tool removers, but I had this screwdriver handy, so I just pried it up and the hose popped right off. And so we're gonna just try to push it over here out of the way. Something like that might do a better job so it doesn't poke. Oh, sorry, you can't see. Poke on this air conditioner connector there and poke something through there. But we'll keep that kind of out of the way so we can fish this fan shroud up and out of there. But we've got the top loose. We've got to get these bolts out the side, and then those couple of clips in the bottom, so we'll check on that. These are 13mm bolts that come out of the shroud right here on both sides. So again, we've got these push tabs that are holding it in this plug, and I got to get underneath to get those last few clips off, and then we should be able to start trying to fish this thing out from the top. So this plug is undone now. It just snaps right out of the bracket here, right underneath the bolt hole, and then there's a push clip right here, and it comes loose. So that's the electric fan plug for the air conditioner electric fan. And so of course that'll come off next once we get this out. And then there's just a tab, you can't really see it from this angle, it's too dark, tab at the bottom that the fan shroud clips into. And then we just pushed in this little locking pin and pulled up on this side. So this is all loose now. It's all loose on this side. And then same thing over here, we pushed in this tab, pulled up on here, and this is all loose. So now we're going to push this radiator hose, it's still very, very hot, out of the way again and try to pull this up. There is not a locking tab like on the top, on the bottom of the fan shroud. So the one that's on the bottom is actually for the electric fan that's still in there. So, well, and that holds true for this too, I see now. So that's only for the electric fan that's clipped to the radiator grill or the air conditioner condenser. It's not actually on the shroud itself. So you can wait to do those until it's time to get the fan off. And there we are with the fan shroud out. So that came out pretty easy. You kind of have to be careful pulling it out, those sharp edges. If you haven't noticed my knuckle there, they will cut you very easily on this sharp plastic edge here. So you have to be careful pulling it out. And then also on your radiator hose here, you don't want to accidentally slice it open or create a nick in it and then blow a hose down the road or something. So, but it's out. No big deal there. There's our AC electric fan. So this thing is supposed to only run when the air conditioner is on. And then the new one that will replace that as well will run if the air conditioner is on or the temperature gets too high. So this new V6 fan is going to replace everything up here, free up a lot of space. You can see already, top down view, how much space is open. So now we got to get this electric fan off and clean everything up real good and start test fitting and putting the new one in. Here is our stock electric fan for the AC that just came out. So it just sits in there with the same tabs, and you just have to kind of wiggle it past the brackets on each side as you work your way up with it to bypass the hoses and stuff, so you don't have to take anything else apart. This thing is pretty much on the same size as the replacement fan, but as you can see, take this thing loose. As you can see, a little bit bigger blades probably, about the same, well no, it looks a little bit bigger diameter wise, but this one of course has the shroud that you need to pull the air through the entire radiator, whereas this one was just to help cool down the air conditioner condenser coils and whatnot, and not the entire radiator stack for the vehicle. So if this had something that closed all this off, it probably would be pretty good by itself. But this one will now pull air through the entire surface of the radiator and help cool everything out. And of course, one of my big projects for this truck is I want to put a Pro Charger on this truck, and we'll have an intercooler in the front as well. So we need to make sure we have as much cooling capacity as possible to pull through that and the stock radiator, the air conditioner, and everything else. So one of my next chores is I'm gonna get in here and remove the active grille shutters. I had a brain fart there for a second. So the active grille shutters that are in this truck that shut and close off the airflow, we don't want that. We want all the maximum airflow as possible to go through here and keep everything cool. So I'll have another video on that pretty soon when we take care of that. I want to concentrate on what we're doing here first and get this all buttoned up before we worry about another step. And so there's a look at everything removed. So really just one clip at the top, that metal clip, one clip at the bottom, and then they hold in on the same little brackets here, top and bottom, and it just slides up and out. So again, you just kind of have to walk it past the tube, the coolant hose here, and then the overflow hose on this side, and it'll come straight out the top, no problem. So now we just got to get the new one dropped in. Well, we've hit two rather unfortunate snags in the process, but almost every single time you do anything with these projects or aftermarket stuff, you're bound to run into something. So, of course, if you notice this lovely little piece right here, it is broken off of where we need to bolt this to hold it into place. So, I'm going to have to get some epoxy and epoxy this back. It almost looks like something chewed through it, but I think it's just snapped off, probably in shipping. Always check your packages. This package was in mint condition, so I wonder if that wasn't just from the manufacturer or something happened there. So I'm going to have to epoxy that back on, let it dry so I can bolt this in. It did drop back into place just fine. I thought for a second maybe I broke that off, but this then went hunting for the piece, and it's in the box. So anyway, we'll get that fixed up so we can bolt this into place and it'll hold it. It looks like there is no pin, that little push clip that held it in, the original one, into place. It doesn't look like that's there anymore. So I'll check the one on the bottom. And then this side is fine. There's nothing wrong with this side. It's right into place. And then the second thing, which a lot of people complain about and say can happen, and of course in my instance it did, is the plug on this thing is way up here at the top, and this was way down here at the bottom. There's not enough slack in the wiring, and I don't think, there's no way to pull any more wire or any slack in it to get it to the plug. So we've got two wires on it here. So even though I hate to do it, I'm gonna take this loose and cut this, and then probably need to test it first. And then I'm gonna use the wire that's on the original fan to splice back together to get the plug to work like it's supposed to. So So that's the plan anyway. It's going to take a little bit longer than I anticipated, but that's just the way things go. And I'm going to get to work on that and then get this epoxied in so it can dry and we can put it together. All right, so what I'm going to do to solve my wire dilemma is I've cut the plug off of the existing AC condenser fan, and I'm going to use that wire to splice in. Got plenty of length here to splice in, so I'm going to cut, leave some extra on here if I have to go back, but I'm kind of subscribing to the mentality of, well, there's no way back from here, only forward, not backwards. So we're going to use this, cut this, and splice it in, and then we should be good to go on the wire we need to get to the new plug. I have seen online and other videos and forums and stuff that people have popped this out and moved it over to get it to the plug, but there is like a thermostat piece, that green piece in there, that picks up the heat and tells this thing when to cut on and off. And so I don't want to move that from where it's designed to be in here, because that will then impact when this thing kicks on and off like it's supposed to. So that needs to stay where it is in there, and we're just going to extend the wires to get over here to it. Here's a look back at the bottom of it now that it's back in place. The push pins line right back up where they're supposed to and go in the bottom of the fan. The little metal bracket clip that clipped and held it on, the factory one, it didn't seem to want to go back on, but this thing is in there really strong in all the brackets, so I don't think there's any problem with leaving it off. And this, again, is locked back in with these push pins, and it's in there pretty dang good. So all button up on the bottom, and now we'll take a look at the top. And that's it, it's all back together. The metal retaining clip did end up holding on up here, so there is a little indentation there, and it snaps back into place, so that's good. The bolts are back in, it's bolted back in on this side. Coolant hose is snapped back in. There's a bracket on this new fan here that snaps back into place. Wiring is extended. I've got to test it out now, but the wiring is extended and plugged back up for this plug up here, and everything's back together there. And then I didn't crank back down on this bolt just yet where I've got the epoxy. The epoxy's drying on it, so I didn't want to put too much pressure on it until it had a chance to set up, but I think this side's fine. And look how much more room and how open everything is now in between the engine block and the fan. And so, yeah, everything's back together. Now we just got to crank it up, test it out, see how it's working. There's the fan. If you can hear me over the noise of the truck and it running, that's with the air conditioner cut on. The truck was just cranked, so it's not up to speed or temperature yet. So you can hear just how loud it is. Oh, and there it is cutting back off again. So everything's working good there. And you could feel the air being pulled through the grill and everything. So it pulls a ton of air when it kicks on for that air conditioner. And of course it's kicked back off now. One quick note I did want to kind of throw in here on the video is once I've got everything put back together, there was kind of a sharp edge right here on this fan shroud. You can see how this one is, ooh, that's hot still. You can see how this one is a pretty sharp edge. And then same thing over here. It's got, you know, it's not super sharp, but it is. And my particular setup with my coolant hose was rubbing. You can see the marks on the hose. Again, that's very hot still. Where it was rubbing on that edge, and I said, you know what, over time and vibration and whatnot, I sure would hate to rub a hole right in that hose and then it explode or spring a leak. So I just got a file and filed that side down right there so it's real smooth and it can rest on there if it needs to. It's got, yeah, it is resting on there, so it's smooth now and it doesn't rub on it, and kind of fixed that. But I did want to point that out on this particular setup. Might just be the sag in the hose over the years or whatnot, but just wanted to at least show that in the video. So it's been a couple of weeks now since we've got the fan installed, and everything's running perfect. Everything's running smooth, just like the way it's supposed to be. But I will say this mod might not be for everybody out there. So there's a couple of different steps, I think, to get the full advantage of this electric fan conversion that you probably want to do. One is you probably want to lower your stock thermostat if you want to. Again, there's a lot of literature and stuff you can read, research on forums and online and stuff about these things. You know, everybody's got their own opinion. In my personal opinion, the stock thermostat in these things, 5.7 Hemis, I think is about 203 degrees. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's right. I just ordered a Mishimoto 180 degree thermostat. I think lowering the overall temperature that the coolant starts circling or cycling through the engine will help this thing stay in a better, lower operating temperature range and overall be a little bit better for the engine. The other thing is the active grille shutters. If your truck has that on them, I would suggest removing them or at least altering them slightly. There's a lot of debate on this too. If you remove them completely, it can supposedly throw an engine code. I don't know if that results in a check engine light on the dash or just a code in the computer, like if you were to scan it or whatever. On my Mustang, when I did the full cooling video and upgrades and everything with the radiator, I just simply unplugged them. It did throw a code, but you could only see it when you scanned it. It wasn't a check engine light. So if that's the case, you know, that's not really that big a deal. What I'm going to do is in the next video, again, if you want to subscribe or check back, I'll have that one shortly, is just leave the top slat and the bottom slat in place. So the computer, the motors, everything still functions like it's supposed to, but those will not be allowed to close anymore. So what can happen is as you're going down the road, cruising speeds and whatever, those things can shut to help with miles per gallon and all that mess, which we do not care about here. And some stability and keep the airflow and all that and whatnot. Again, I don't care about any of that. So what we're going to do is leave them in place so the computer will still see them. The motor will still work like it's supposed to. It'll close the top one and the bottom one, but there will be no restrictions through the middle, and that airflow can go into the radiator like it's supposed to. Down the road, we do hope to pro charge this thing, and with the intercooler, it's part of the install process is to take those things out anyway. So I don't think it's going to be a big deal ultimately, but that will help keep the airflow moving at highway speeds and everything, so this thing doesn't fluctuate and heat up and cool down. All that. Last big step is a custom tune. We do plan to do that shortly as well, and you can get the tuner or Diablo Sport or whatever tuner you may use, whatnot, to lower the temperature which these electric fans cut on at. So about 190 degrees, I think, is what most people do, 189, somewhere in that range. And so I'll talk to a tuner when we get to that point. So those are the three other things that you can do to help this mod out. I don't think I'm going to have any trouble leaving it as is. I've been driving it, like I said, for about 3 weeks or so, and everything's worked fine. What ends up happening is if you have your air conditioner on, the fan will kick on and off with that and keep the temperatures relatively low and stable and you know, nowhere near trying to get too hot. If you don't have it on, the truck will heat up to about 220 degrees coolant temperature, and that electric fan will kick in when it gets about 220, 222, and it will pull the temps down very quickly. It'll pull them 15, 20 degrees down, and so it moves a lot of air really quickly. So again, it's working fine. It's doing what it's supposed to. It's never gotten over that that temperature, and the oil temperature doesn't get too hot or past that temperature either. So everything's working good. We're going to put the thermostat in another video, and we're going to do the active grille shutter delete in another video. So again, if you want to follow along, see what we do with that, please subscribe to the channel. If you've got any questions, drop them down below, or leave a like if it was helpful at all. And I appreciate you watching the video. Hope you have a great day. Thanks.